The defending of white-collar crimes in Florida is really a niche area in criminal defense today. These cases are very rewarding from a criminal defense standpoint and result in some significant victories overall due to the fact that these are difficult cases for the state to prove, and you can tear them apart if you really know what you're doing. White-collar crimes are generally considered nonviolent crimes that involve the element of defrauding someone, but more often, something's finances. And we're talking, of course, about corporations, sometimes big ones. These crimes can include regulatory offenses such as labor violations, unfair trade practices, and administrative violations. We've seen a surge of white-collar crimes in Florida over the last decade, and it's going to continue, not only due to the increased fraudulent activity and more sophisticated fraudulent activity becoming tantamount to white-collar crime, but also due to the inclusion of some of these lower-level petty offenses that I guess can technically fall under the same genre of white-collar. Now, complex, sophisticated white-collar crime has a devastating impact and involves a significant, almost astronomical amount of money and losses to the victims. This requires that the perpetrators of the sophisticated white-collar crimes be smart, and generally, they're people that hold positions of authority and significant trust. This, of course, is needed to groom the victims, and by what I mean by the word groom is earning trust through manipulative acts. A distinguishing feature of the individuals who carry out these sophisticated white-collar crimes is that they are meticulous in thinking through, planning, and executing the scheme to defraud a corporation or finances or property of another. Okay, so what are the gray areas or low-level petty crimes that can technically fall under the veil of white-collar crime? Well, there's embezzlement, writing worthless checks, credit card fraud, counterfeiting, forgery, mortgage fraud, insurance fraud. Well, embezzlement, on the low level, that's really just an employee who's using company assets or property for their own benefit. Writing worthless checks, I mean, it doesn't get much lower than that. Writing a check from your own account that doesn't have the funds. Credit card fraud, this can be very complex and massive, such as what we saw with the Target stores over the holidays. Hundreds of thousands of credit card numbers were stolen and disseminated in a very organized scheme involving complex computer hacks. And then the low-level single operator or packs of individuals who steal credit cards and make purchases. Still, both credit card fraud can both be considered white-collar crime. But the complex defense of these cases stems from the sophisticated plans and organized schemes to defraud. Other low-level crimes can be considered counterfeiting and forgery, the forging of any instrument or document with the intention of defrauding. Crimes under this category can include counterfeiting currency, forging checks, more sophisticated acts, forging wills, creating fake wills. And on the low level, possibly the lowest level in terms of counterfeiting, we have the counterfeiting of controlled substances, whereby some low level, and when I say low level, I mean low on the food chain when it comes to organized crime or criminal activity, this individual makes fake drugs and sells them. I can't imagine a quicker way to be found out. Mortgage fraud. I've seen a ton of that over the last 10 years. This includes Crimes like property flipping, inflated appraisals, illegal foreclosure schemes, equity skimming, misrepresenting loan documents, and using fake identities in real estate transactions. Insurance fraud, well, that's been around as long as insurance. We've all seen the mob movies where a business is burned to the ground to collect the insurance proceeds, or a car. We've even seen insurance fraud whereby the perpetrator has fabricated the death of themselves or another in order to obtain benefits. And that's something that insurance frauds are split into two categories. Just so you remember, there's hard fraud, where the perpetrator plans and executes a claim in order to obtain benefits of which they're not entitled. Soft fraud, which is more common, less complex, which is an understatement. That's just exaggerating loss in order to increase an award for which has been claimed. And the penalties for all of these crimes range from misdemeanor all the way to first-degree felony, and that's obvious when you're dealing with such a vast difference in the types of individuals who perpetrate them, what goes into the criminal act, and the amount of money stolen, the amount of victims. The thing is, and I must point this out as a criminal defense attorney who has handled some good ones, the more complex, more involved, more sophisticated white-collar crimes are so defendable because they're so hard for the state to prove. And most prosecutors just don't have the resources or sometimes skills to handle what is suddenly complex litigation. A lot of these cases go federal. We're seeing more of that as well because these crimes are using the internet, cell phones, requiring the use of these items. We've seen a lot of cases involving the U.S. Postal Service. This creates jurisdictional problems, and so the feds come in. And what do the feds do? Although generally their penalties are less in terms of years in federal prison, they are quick to add on additional charges. Federal white-collar crimes, where there's jurisdictional issues, you're going to see additional charges such as wire fraud. Be prepared for mail fraud, Ponzi scheme, insider trading, and securities fraud. Regardless, even on the federal level, these cases are fun to defend, and if you know what you're doing, you've got a good firm, you're going to be highly rewarding. You're going to have big cases with great trial statistics. The thing is, your trial is going to take months. Now let's talk about two of the most notable, complex frauds whereby the defendants walk scot-free. Let's talk about this after the break.